Hello. I wanted to do a quick walkthrough of Olde Swords Reign so people could see exactly what's in the book and see if they want it, really. So, here we go. Olde Swords Reign is essentially it's based on the 5e SRD, so you can, if you use the 5e, you'll know where everything is, but it changes the game to be a lot more old school. It's a lot faster, a lot deadlier, it's less about your character sheet and kind of optimization and more about making clever choices. And kind of all the rules kind of push it in that direction, so it plays as a really, really different game. People have enjoyed it a lot so far, so this is kind of like what makes it different. The difference between this and 5e is subclasses are gone, the races have been simplified, the classes have been simplified. It stops at level 12, so it's not about superheroes, it's more about a game of adventurers. Skills are gone, so your background actually matters. Your background, you apply your proficiency bonus to checks. Feats and hindrances are within this game. They kind of change those with those 4 basic classes, but they, instead of just being kind of a narrow path, you can pretty much create anything you want within them. DCs have been simplified, so there's easy, normal, hard, very hard. So you're actually speaking, as opposed to numbers, you're speaking in words, and it makes it a lot more intuitive and again faster to make decisions. Movement rate has been simplified. There's all the old school spells that are in here. Monsters are completely changed, so although they're the same classic monsters, they've all got a d8 hit dice, like the original rules, and the hit dice actually defines almost everything about the monster, so it means creating them, making them and running them is a lot faster. And there's different conversion rules here as well. So I'll go straight onto character creation. There's a bit about your different stats and how that works, your ability modifiers. One of the changes is it's 3d6 to roll your stats. Again, it fits with the game. It's a lot better. There's options here, and one of the things I try to do throughout the game is to give options, so it's more of a toolkit, I suppose. So you can pick how you want it in your game. So we always give our players an option to roll straight down the line, which essentially means your first dice goes to strength, second goes to dex, and we tend to reward them. But if people want to do that, they're going to get a more janky character, but they're going to let the dice gods decide what that character is going to be. Then we'll give them a feat to start off with as well. But again, these options I've put throughout the book, so you can use them if you want or not. Again, nearly everything in the book is probably compatible with 5e. If there are bits that you like and you want to pull into your game, that's easy enough done as well. So again, there's 4 basic races in here. You've got your different bonuses for each of the races. I'll be adding new races in future releases. The classes, you've got your cleric. Now again, your cleric has a d6 hit die. One of the things I've also done in here as well is I've changed the average instead of rounding up that average. Normally you round up the average, which would be you could take an average of 4 hit points. I don't like that. The reason I've changed it is statistically you're a lot better taking the average, but this is a game about rolling dice and taking chances. So I didn't want to reward people for not doing that and taking the safe option. So yeah, you can take the average, but it's going to be just that half of it's not going to be rounded up. Or you can roll your dice. So, and that makes kind of a big difference. So if you're like a magic user in this, a magic user's got 4 d4 hit points or d4 hit die. So the difference between a 3 and a 2 is big. You're going to be more inclined to roll, and that's going to give you them more interesting characters to play. So again, with this, the spells go up to level 6 in this game. Fighters, the original rules in the original games, fighters didn't have feats or anything like that. In this version, what I've done is I've created a set of fighter feats that fighters can take at different levels. I've also created a set of expert feats for another class, which we'll go through next. But I've also included here at the bottom, down here, is options that you can play exactly like the original rules. So feats are essentially an option in this if you want to play them. We always use them because they make the game a lot more interesting, but you don't have to. And again, there's different options on how you can add them into your game. The expert has replaced the thief class. What we found when we were doing a lot of playing is that assassins and thieves were really, really similar, and there was lots of overlaps in these things. So what I wanted players to be able to do is have this one class that they could essentially create anything they wanted. If it was a traditional thief, it was an assassin, if it was more of a kind of con merchant, or just about anything else, a bard type characters, they can use this class to do it. And by using this and potentially multi-classing, you can create literally any character concept that you want, and you're not limited by a class and a subclass kind of line that you have to go down. Players have really enjoyed this idea of being able to create things not in a book but in their imagination, which is cool. But there's also this option, sorry I should say, at the bottom, where you can play the original thief class. Magic users are here again, as I said, D4 hit points. Magic users have a couple of cantrips in this game, but cantrips aren't a massive thing. Okay, beyond first level, there's options here for training. So again, this is an option. It's something that we're going to be using in our games. When you get your XP to level up, you don't just suddenly become better. You have to go get training for it. This option here means it costs you your level times 100 gold pieces per week in training, and it takes 2 weeks. So as you go up in levels, it's going to cost you more to level up. At the end of that, you take an easy check using whatever your prime requisite is, and easy as a DC 8. And if you make that check, you level up. You've training, everything's kind of like kicked in. If it hasn't, you need to train for another week. And there's lots of these options throughout the games that you can choose to use or not use. So again, where are we here? Hit points and hit die. Proficiencies. Backgrounds. I've got 20 backgrounds here. And again, this is how what replaces the skill system. So if you are a barbarian, you would be proficient in things like wilderness exploration, looking for hunting, anything you can reasonably apply it to. You just speak to the DM and say, I have this in my background, and you use your proficiency bonus on it. It means the backgrounds and who your character were matters so much more. Players have really enjoyed being able to use that, as opposed to having these, you are just good at this one thing, and it tends not to make so much sense, well, at least to me. So there's the backgrounds there. Feats. Feats are optional. You don't have to use them within this game. We always use them, but I've given different options on how you can actually implement them into your game. The feats, the fighter and the experts have their feats as part of their classes. One of the things as well is they get a new feat at the same level that magic users get new spells, or casters get new spells. So you don't feel like you're stagnating as a player when people are leveling up around you and a fighter just gets harder to hit. So yeah, that's why the fighter feats have been put in there and the expert feats. But there are also a load of general feats that you can use. I've put different options that you can use them in depending on how you want to use them in your game. You can add them, let everybody take a feat at levels 2, 6 or 10. You can play the original classes and use them in a slightly different way. There's hindrances later on in this book, which I'll show you. We often say if somebody takes a hindrance at character creation, they can take a feat as well. So, or you can train and get them. But there's different options on how you can implement them into your game. The expert feats will be your traditional ones, but also other things like chemist and stuff like that. Wise mouth, where you can get under people's skin, so you can play some really cool characters. There's loads of fighter feats in here. Things like rage, which is really powerful, also has a bit of a jag on it because you can't necessarily just come out of your rage. You might end up attacking your own party. That has led to amazing stuff in our game, some great characters. General feats, there's loads of them here. And again, they really let your character develop over time, but they don't make them massively overpowered as well, because this is, as I said before, this is not a game about superheroes or massively high fantasy. This is a game of a bit janky kind of adventurers getting through. Hindrances. Players initially were unsure about these, but now they absolutely love them. So it means the characters are more interesting. It takes something away, but also gives to the kind of like the actual game that you're playing. What I tend to do at the start is, you can take a hindrance if you want, and loads of people do, but I give players the option that with these hindrances that they can roll for one, and if they roll for one, I'll give them a feat, a character creation. Regardless of what the feat is or the hindrance is, try and work with it. Tweak them a little bit to settle. So like we've had, throughout this game, and it's again, it says it here. We've had an assassin who was a coward. So every time combat and the odds were bad, he had to roll a check, and if not, he went and hid for X amount of rounds. The other players didn't know about it. It was such a cool thing because they were absolutely clueless as to what was happening, that this big loudmouth assassin was all of a sudden running and hiding in places. We had a magic user who was a librarian who was addicted to the glue in book bindings, and it was just hilarious. So these make more interesting characters, which is why they're in there. Again, you don't have to use them if you don't want to. There's a section on equipment. I won't go into too much detail. But again, there's other little options like sleeping in armor. Never fit well with me that people just wear heavy armor and sleep. So there's an option there that you can use in your game, and there's a lot of these that if you decide to sleep in a heavy armor, you need to make a normal Constitution check, which is DC 12 in the morning. If you don't make that check, you don't benefit from a long rest, from a short rest. If you roll natural one, you get a level of exhaustion. It was a really bad night. It just makes players have to make decisions, and that's one of the things we're trying to drive with the game, is giving players a position where they have to make harder decisions and weigh stuff up. Section on weapons, all the kind of original gear is in here. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this. Transportation, magic. Again, spells here are the original spells. They pack a lot of punch, and yeah, so clerics don't get cantrips. There are only a couple of cantrips for magic users. This isn't a cast every second kind of game, but when you cast, it really makes a difference. And spells go up to 6th level. There's information on spell books, getting stuff in, concentration, all that sort of stuff. A spell list for magic users and clerics, and then all the spells. You'll notice that the spells are, they don't take up huge amount of space. So yeah, they're short, concise, but they pack a punch when you use them. So there's a big magic section there for all the different spells. General rules. So, sorry, I'm getting dry here. General rules. Specific, kind of just general things about gameplay. There's the DC side of stuff. The DCs being in words as opposed to numbers really makes a big difference in how easy it is to run the game, and how easy it is to negotiate stuff. So this climb would normally be normal, but it's hard because it's super slippy. You're speaking in words as opposed to numbers, and it makes it much easier for players to go, yeah, that seems reasonable. But it also makes it easier for players to say, well, actually, I've got this thing here. Would that make it a normal roll then? So it speeds up stuff, and it means you're speaking in stuff. It's making rulings in a way that makes sense to everybody, and I really like that. There's lots of uses for advantage and disadvantage in this game. Lots of things have been simplified to use that as a mechanic. So again, it adds to the speed of play. There's not stopping to look at character sheets. There's not stopping to look at rule books. You can pretty much roll most things on the fly based on the same mechanics run throughout the game again and again and again. Information on group checks. Time. Time's been split into different areas. You've got your day, your round, and your turn. Round is 6 seconds. Turn is 10 minutes. There's also watch. I put watch into this, which is a 4-hour spread, because it makes a really big difference when you're doing wilderness stuff. There's a whole section on wilderness exploration, which we'll get to, and I'll show you how you can use watches. Speeds. The speeds are simplified in this. It's slow, normal, or fast. Again, makes rulings really, really easy. Most things have a normal speed, which is 30 feet per second, but it affects how far you can go in a turn or a yard as well, and it breaks down the different things there. Ranges are simplified as well. Close within 5 feet, near within 30 feet, far 120 feet, and very far beyond that. Again, all adding to the speed of play. Encumbrance. Encumbrance is really important. It's kind of not being used so much anymore. So it's a simplified slot-based encumbrance system. There's reasoning kind of put throughout the book here as to why you should be using it and why it's important. You don't have to, but it's all there. Falling. This is a bit of difference. So this is like the original rules where falling was actually cumulative. But it got taken out of the rules later on. I think somebody thought it wasn't meant to be there in that format. It's 1d6 for 10 feet. For 20 feet, it's 1d6 plus 2d6, which is 3d6. The higher you are, the more it's going to hurt, dramatically. when you fall. So that's the original way of using falling is what we've used in here. Again, there's loads of other different things within the different areas. Oh, this is interesting. Rest is like kind of difference. We have a long rest. A long rest in this is 1d4 plus 1 days. A short rest is 8 hours, and you need to sleep, and you've got a breather. So a short rest, and we'll cover that first, is 8 hours. You need to drink or eat, and then after that, what you can do is you roll your hit dice and you get your hit points back, and you get your spells back. You get your spell slots back. A long rest is that period where you're in a town or someplace safer, and you get to, with one short rest, you get to get half your hit die back. With 2, you get all your hit die back, and you also get all your hit points back with one long rest. A breather happens after combat. Anytime after combat, you're allowed to take a breather. Takes a turn, and what you do then is you kind of like bandage yourself up, take a sip of water, make sure everybody's okay. To take a turn, you use a provision. So provision is something we've used to replace food, rations, water, and kind of bandages and that side of stuff. So you need to use a provision to bandage yourself up. It's like a medicine kit, and then you get to roll a d4 plus or minus your con. If you don't have a provision, it's 1 plus or minus your con, with a minimum of 1. It doesn't sound much, but it makes a huge difference, because although your hit points are a lot lower in this, everything you fight, the hit points are significantly lower, and we'll cover that in a minute. So these breathers means you can actually push on really, really far through a dungeon without having to leave. But again, you're making these choices all the time. Dungeon adventuring. There's a sequence here on turn sequence on how to do dungeon adventuring. If you want to use it, it goes into random counters, lights, doors. Doors have played a massive part in our campaigns and how to use them, what listening at doors, all that side of stuff, and how doors shut, how to open them. It sounds really basic stuff, but it's stuff that I wasn't using in my game, so I put it in here, and it's a way of ratcheting up the tension in a dungeon that I never use, so I figured it'd be good to share with people. Wilderness exploration. There's a whole section here on wilderness exploration. It breaks down provisions, how you can use them, why they're there, how you can get more, also how you can potentially expand it. So if you want, so provisions cover first aid kits, food and water. There's different ways of adding to your provisions, which I'll go through now. If you want to expand it to something that seems reasonable, like torches, you could say that you could use 1 provision to create 10 torches, and it's like using animal fat or fungus to essentially make them, but you would have to take the time to make them. It goes through watches, the sequence of how you go through a watch, the different actions you can take, investigation, travel, navigate, it breaks down getting lost, how you can hunt, forage and fish for more provisions, and finding water, eating, drinking, sleeping, finding camp, that kind of stuff, how you craft and repair stuff. I've done a full example of exploration in the appendix B at the end of the book, so you can literally go through a 24-hour period of how it would be used and how players are using it. It means that wilderness exploration actually becomes interesting, but everything here is based on the same mechanics throughout the book, and that's a key thing. So there's a table there that gives you the different DCs depending on which order you are for the different tasks that you can do. So yep, there's weather and how it can affect stuff, and a random table for rolling it. Downtimes, there's things about recuperating, lifestyle, living expenses, training. With the living expenses as an option there for if you're living in really crappy places, the impact it might have on you, chance of being robbed, getting diseases, that kind of stuff. Combat rules. Combat rules, most of the stuff you know where it is. There isn't bonus actions in this, so combat tends to move a lot faster. It breaks down exactly what you can do in combat, size, spaces, that kind of stuff, the actions you can do, make an attack, all that sort of stuff, 2-weapon fighting. Death saving throws. There's instant death and falling unconscious and death saving throws as normal in 5e based games. One of the options that I've put in here is something that we use, is on a nat 20 you pop up with 1 hit point, but on a nat 1 you die instantly. Now I've not put it in as a core rule, but it's there as an option. it statistically makes really different, very little difference on your game. The chance of you dying, you've still got like a 50% or maybe just over chance of making it through your death saves. But it completely changes the level of tension in the game. Completely changes how players behave about when they get dropped. Every single roll, it changes how they feel. It changes the decisions that other people within the group are having to make and how fast they get to them. They're not saying, no, we've got loads of time here. It's a small thing, and these options are throughout the game. That makes a huge difference. Use it if you wish. Let me go through here. All standard stuff, mounted combat, hired help. The section on how to hire people. There's also a section on retainers, how to hire them, what happens if you get refusals, loyalty, people. And again, the loyalty side of stuff is based on the player who's hired them's charisma score, and any loyalty bonuses those people have, how you can use them. Monsters are really simplified in the game. So they've got all monsters have a D8 hit die, but the hit die of a monster helps you define loads of stuff about that monster. It helps you obviously your hit points, but also gives you their saving throws, their to hit bonuses. So by knowing the hit die of a monster, you can convert stuff really easy, and there's appendices which shows you how to do that. But it just means running them is much easier. They don't feel the same because your different abilities make them feel very different, but it means creating monsters is really simple. XP, the XP of monsters you'll see here is about 10% of what it is in 5e. The focus of this game is not killing stuff. You can kill stuff and get XP, but a better way of getting XP is by getting treasure. So it pushes you more to find creative ways around it and get that treasure back to safety. Again, monsters' hit dice define their saving throws based again on the easy, normal, hard standards that everybody gets used to within the game. This is a section on awarding XP, how much treasure you should do, advice on what to do. Again, if you're running older school modules, there's random encounter tables, how to build them, how to make them a little bit more interesting, monster reactions as well. Again, the monster reactions are based on D20 rolls. Monster section, breakdown of the stats. You'll notice that the monsters, they take a lot less space. The monster section is fairly big, and it goes through. So to give you an idea of hit points, a white dragon there. The hit points of a white dragon are between 53 and 74 hit points. It completely changes how a battle happens. Claw damage is D4. Now they are deadly as hell still because your hit points are lower, but it means that everything is killable as well as you being killable. So all of a sudden strategy becomes so important on how you can get the upper hand in these battles. But yeah, there's a big monster section here. In the future I plan on releasing more and a lot of original stuff, but these are all your classics, and there's a lot of them. And what else we got? Sections, treasure. It's all black and white art as well. Dean Spencer's amazing. Most of it's his, but there's some other artists in there. And yeah, I really like the stuff in there. Treasures, magic items and stuff like that. I've put them into 3 categories: minor, medium, and major, and given advice on when you can let them into the game so they don't completely overpower stuff. All the items have been given a whether it's a minor or medium, and how you can then kind of easily identify stuff in the future as any of them. Again, optional if you want to use it. There's potions, rings, staffs, wands, weapons, other items, cursed items, and the appendices, which is your conditions, the exploration option, which goes through the different watches, what a party did in order just to get through a wood, converting monsters from 5e and how to convert them from old school stuff, old school saves, and how to convert your old school saves, and that's kind of it. That is Olde Swords Reign, or I should say the new version of Olde Swords Reign. There's going to be more stuff released in future for it. I love it. Hopefully you love it as well. And if you've got any questions, there's a Discord which you can jump onto, or find us on Facebook and speak to us from there. So yeah, cool. Any questions, I'd love to answer them. Take care.